Hold on. Do not scroll past this video, and whatever you do, do not spend another old, dark, or dirty penny from your pocket until you have watched every single second of this presentation. Right now, hiding in old glass jars, forgotten cigar boxes, inherited coin albums, and everyday pocket change are some of the most misunderstood pieces of American history. Most people look at a dark, spotted, worn-out wheat penny and see absolutely nothing of value. They assume it is just another piece of common copper worth exactly 1 cent, and they casually drop it into a vending machine or hand it over a store counter without a second thought. But experienced collectors operate entirely differently. They know that appearances are notoriously deceiving in the world of numismatics, and that the dirtiest, most ordinary-looking coin could be hiding a story, a history, and a level of collector demand that would leave the average person in absolute shock. Today, we are going to examine 3 specific Lincoln wheat pennies that continue to captivate the attention of serious collectors across the country. I am going to reveal the hidden details, the historical significance, and the subtle characteristics that separate a common survivor from a highly desirable numismatic treasure. I need you to make me a promise right now. If you find any of the coins we are about to discuss, do not attempt to clean them, do not polish them, and do not spend them until you have carefully evaluated every microscopic detail we are going to cover. The second coin on our list has a mint mark history that surprises even veteran collectors, and the final coin represents the absolute end of an era, holding secrets that millions of people overlook every single day. 1940, D. Lincoln wheat penny. Our journey begins in a year that defined the modern world, a time when the United States was standing on the precipice of global change. The year was 1940. The Great Depression was finally releasing its grip on the American economy, and across the oceans, the shadows of World War II were rapidly expanding. American industry was awakening, factories were roaring back to life, and the nation was beginning an unprecedented buildup of military and industrial might. During this extraordinary period of transition and uncertainty, everyday Americans relied on small change more than ever before. A penny bought a daily newspaper that carried headlines of a changing world. It bought a piece of candy, paid for a stamp, and moved the gears of local commerce. It was against this dramatic historical backdrop that the Denver Mint struck the 1940 D. Lincoln wheat penny. When you hold one of these coins in your hand today, you are not just holding a small disc of copper. You are holding a silent witness to a defining chapter of the 20th century. Millions of these pennies poured out of the Denver Mint, shipped across the American West in heavy canvas bags, and immediately entered circulation. They traveled in the pockets of soldiers preparing for deployment, factory workers building the arsenal of democracy, and everyday citizens navigating a rapidly changing society. Yet, despite the massive numbers produced, the passage of more than 8 decades has fundamentally altered the landscape of surviving examples. Today, finding a 1940 D wheat penny that has survived with its original integrity intact is an event that immediately captures the attention of an experienced collector. When you first discover a 1940 D wheat penny, the initial step is to place it under a bright, unforgiving light. The obverse, or the front of the coin, features the iconic and enduring portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, masterfully sculpted by Victor David Brenner, and first introduced to the American public in 1909. Lincoln faces to the right, a portrait of stoic leadership that resonated deeply with the American public during the turbulent times of 1940. Across the top rim, the national motto, "In God We Trust," arches with a sense of enduring hope. To the left of Lincoln's portrait is the word liberty, and to the right rests the date, 1940. But the detail that instantly draws the eye of any knowledgeable collector lies just below that date. There, nestled quietly in the copper, is a small, distinct letter D. This mint mark is the fingerprint of the Denver Mint, proving that this specific coin was born in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains. The Denver Mint was known for its robust production standards, often utilizing striking pressures that brought out the fine details in Brenner's design. Collectors carefully inspect this tiny D under magnification. They look for the exact placement, the clarity of the punch, and any signs of repunching or die fatigue. To the untrained eye, a mint mark is just a letter, But to a numismatist, it is a crucial piece of the puzzle that determines the coin's origin, its production run, and ultimately, its place in a specialized collection. Turning the coin over reveals the reverse design that gave this beloved series its famous nickname. Two sweeping, elegant stalks of wheat frame the left and right sides of the coin, symbolizing the agricultural abundance and foundational strength of the nation. Across the upper rim curves the Latin phrase e pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. Centered proudly and boldly between the wheat ears is the denomination 1 cent, resting directly above the words United States of America. This design is a masterpiece of simplicity and balance, but it is also a canvas that records the passage of time. The physical specifications of this coin are critical to its identity. The 1940 D wheat penny is composed of a traditional bronze alloy, precisely 95% copper, combined with 5% tinnin and zinc. This composition gives the coin its rich, warm color and a total weight of approximately 3.11 grams. It measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter with a thickness of roughly 1.52 millimeters, and it features a perfectly smooth, plain edge. These specifications remained incredibly consistent, allowing modern collectors to measure, weigh, and authenticate their discoveries with absolute confidence. However, the true fascination with the 1940 D Lincoln cent lies not just in its specifications, but in the story told by its surfaces. If you pull this coin out of the ground or find it at the bottom of a damp cellar, it may be covered in a dark, almost black layer of oxidation, or perhaps it displays small patches of green verdigris. The immediate instinct for almost every beginner is to reach for a cloth, a chemical polish, or a household abrasive to make the coin shine again. Let me be absolutely clear. Doing so is the single most catastrophic mistake you can make as a coin owner. Experienced collectors do not run from dark, heavily toned, or dirty coins. They study them. Natural toning, accumulated dirt, and honest wear are the badges of authenticity. They prove that the coin has naturally navigated the decades without being artificially altered. When a coin is subjected to chemical dipping or abrasive rubbing, the microscopic flow lines created by the minting press, the very lines that produce original mint luster, are permanently destroyed. The surface is stripped of its history, leaving behind a harsh, unnatural shine that experts refer to as a clean surface. A clean coin immediately loses a massive percentage of its numismatic appeal and value. Collectors want the coin exactly as time left it. If your 1940 D is a dark chocolate brown with worn wheat lines, it is respected as an honest, circulated survivor. The condition of the coin ultimately dictates its desirability. In heavily circulated grades, the highest points of the design are the first to disappear. Lincoln's cheekbone, the subtle waves in his hair, and the delicate parallel lines on the wheat stalks will wear down, sometimes merging into a smooth surface. These coins are celebrated for their historical journey, even if their monetary value remains modest. But the true excitement erupts when a collector encounters a 1940 D that somehow escaped the ravages of circulation. A coin that was placed in a protective envelope or a quiet collection in 1940 and remained untouched for over 80 years is a numismatic time capsule. These mint state examples are categorized by their remaining original color: brown, red-brown, or the highly coveted full red. A pristine 1940 D in a high mint state grade exhibiting blazing original red luster, a razor-sharp strike from the Denver dies, and flawless, unblemished surfaces becomes the target of intense competition among registry set builders. These collectors spend years hunting for the absolute finest known examples to complete their collections. And when a virtually perfect specimen crosses the auction block, the financial results can be staggering. But you must remember, those extraordinary values belong exclusively to the rarest, highest graded condition survivors, not the worn examples found in typical pocket change. Yet every single 1940 D deserves your respect and your careful observation, because missing a subtle mint error or a perfectly preserved original surface is an opportunity you will never get back. Do not go anywhere and do not stop watching, because as fascinating as the 1940 Denver issue is, the next coin on our countdown carries a history that is entirely unique. It comes from a mint facility that dramatically changed its production patterns, and it represents one of the final opportunities for collectors to capture a very specific type of wheat penny. The tiny detail on this next coin is so important that seasoned numismatists check for it immediately, knowing that its presence completely alters the story and the scarcity of the find. Stay with me, because the second coin is going to completely change the way you inspect your vintage copper. 1955 S. Lincoln Wheat Penny. Imagine sorting through a handful of old pennies and spotting the date 1955. For most casual observers, the year 1955 instantly triggers a memory of the most legendary mint era in American history. The spectacular 1955 Double Die Obverse, a coin where the date and lettering are dramatically and visibly stamped twice. Because of that famous error, countless people hoard every 1955 penny they can find, hoping they have struck gold. But what happens when you look below the date and see a small, sharply defined letter S? Most people, disappointed that it isn't the famous double die, might just toss it back into the jar. That split-second dismissal is a massive error in judgment, because the 1955 S. Lincoln Wheat Penny holds a highly prestigious and incredibly important place in the history of United States coinage. You are not just looking at another old penny, you are looking at what was, at the time, believed to be the final curtain call for the San Francisco Mint's production of circulating cents. To fully grasp the significance of the 1955 S, we must transport ourselves back to the mid-1950s. The United States was in the throes of a massive post-war economic boom. The highway system was expanding, television was capturing the American imagination, and consumer culture was reaching unprecedented heights. While the Philadelphia and Denver mints were operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of coins to feed this hungry, expanding economy, the San Francisco Mint was operating under a different reality. The government had decided that the San Francisco facility was no longer economically necessary for producing regular circulating coinage. Consequently, the production numbers for the 1955 S penny were intentionally kept incredibly low compared to its counterparts in Denver and Philadelphia. In fact, after the 1955 run, the San Francisco Mint ceased production of circulating pennies entirely and would not strike another cent bearing the S Mint mark for general circulation until 1968. This 14-year absolute silence from San Francisco makes the 1955 S a monumental closing chapter for an entire era of coin collectors. When this news broke in 1955, contemporary collectors rushed to banks, hoarding rolls and bags of these uncirculated coins, recognizing instantly that a low-mintage, final-year issue from the legendary West Coast facility was a guaranteed numismatic classic. When you carefully examine the obverse of the 1955 S, Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln remains as dignified as ever. The date 1955 sits boldly to the right, and directly beneath it lies the crucial S Mint mark. The San Francisco Mint had a reputation for producing somewhat distinct striking characteristics during this period. The dyes used in San Francisco often imparted a slightly different texture to the fields of the coin, and collectors obsessively study the shape, style, and placement of this specific S. Because so many of these coins were hoarded by collectors directly from bankrolls in 1955, finding them in brilliant, uncirculated condition is actually more common than finding high-grade examples from earlier decades. However, this historical hoarding creates a fascinating dynamic in the current market. Because uncirculated rolls are relatively plentiful, the standard for what makes a 1955 S truly valuable is incredibly high. An average uncirculated 1955 S with typical bag marks and a fading red color is a wonderful historical keepsake, but it is not a condition rarity. The reverse of the coin displays the familiar and beloved wheat stalks, standing tall against the curved rim, enclosing the 1-cent denomination. The physical composition remains steadfastly identical to its predecessors: 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, weighing approximately 3.1 grams and measuring 19.05 millimeters across its plain edge. But the true battleground for the 1955 S lies in the realm of professional grading and surface preservation. Because this coin was saved in such massive quantities, The market is flooded with examples that are almost perfect. For a 1955 S to truly command the attention of elite collectors and generate significant auction premiums, it must transcend the ordinary. It must achieve the absolute highest echelons of the Sheldon grading scale. We are talking about coins graded Mint State 67 or even Mint State 68 with the full red designation. A full red 1955 S in these upper-tier grades is a visual masterpiece. The surface must be entirely devoid of carbon spots, which are a notorious problem for copper coins stored in less than ideal conditions over decades. The original mint luster must sweep across the coin in an unbroken, brilliant cartwheel effect when rotated under a light. The strike must be exceptionally sharp, fully defining the intricate lines of the wheat stalks and the fine strands of Lincoln's hair. Any microscopic nick, any tiny area of discoloration, or any sign that the coin was gently wiped or improperly handled over the last 70 years will immediately disqualify it from these ultra-elite grades. This is where the golden rule of coin collecting returns with absolute vengeance. Never, under any circumstances, attempt to clean, polish, or alter the surface of your coin. A 1955 S that has been dipped in copper cleaner might look shiny to a novice, but to an expert, it is a ruined piece of history that has been permanently stripped of its original mint luster and downgraded to a fraction of its potential value. Collectors also actively hunt for known die varieties within the 1955 S production run. While it does not boast a massive double die like its Philadelphia counterpart, specialists examine the mint mark under intense magnification for signs of repunching, where the S was stamped into the working die while more than once, leaving a secondary offset image of the letter beneath the primary one. They look for subtle die cracks, die chips, and striking anomalies that document the specific life cycle of the steel dies used in San Francisco during their final moments of circulating cent production. Every single 1955 S tells a story of an ending, a definitive pause in the legacy of West Coast minting, and a moment when the collectors realized they were holding history as it happened. But do not drop your magnifying glass just yet. While the 1955 S marked the end of an era for the San Francisco Mint, the final coin on our countdown represents the absolute end of the line for the entire Wheat Penny series. The design that had defined American pocket change for exactly 50 years was about to be retired forever, replaced by a new vision for a new era. The final year of production created a frenzy of public interest, and the subtle details hidden within these last gasp strikes are still fiercely debated and hunted by numismatics today. If you have an old coin jar, you almost certainly have one of these. But knowing exactly what to look for is the only way to separate the common change from the extraordinary survivor. Stay with me, because the final coin reveals exactly why the wheat penny remains the undisputed king of American coin collecting. 1958, D. Lincoln Wheat Penny. The year 1958 marked the closing chapter of a numismatic legend. For half a century since its highly anticipated and controversial debut in 1909, the Lincoln Wheat Penny had been the ultimate staple of American commerce. It had survived 2 world wars, the devastation of the Great Depression, the Korean War, and the rapid expansion of the 1950s. The wheat ear design, symbolizing the agrarian roots and enduring prosperity of the nation, had become universally recognizable, handled by every single American on a daily basis. But progress is inevitable, and the United States Treasury Department had decided that the impending 50th anniversary of the Lincoln cent in 1959 required a dramatic redesign. The wheat stalks were to be replaced by the imposing architecture of the Lincoln Memorial. When the public realized that 1958 would be the absolute final year of the beloved wheat penny, a wave of nostalgia and speculative hoarding swept across the nation. The 1958 D. Lincoln Wheat Penny, struck in massive quantities at the Denver Mint, became the final testament to a design that had defined generations. The Denver Mint in 1958 was an unstoppable force of industrial efficiency. The facility operated its heavy press relentlessly, producing hundreds of millions of these final year wheat cents to ensure the economy had adequate small change before the massive logistical transition to the new memorial design. Because of this monumental mintage, the 1958 D is one of the most common wheat pennies you can find in circulation, estate sales, or old coffee cans today. The sheer volume of production means that finding a heavily worn, brown, circulated 1958D is not a rare event. It is a daily occurrence. However, it is precisely this massive availability that lulls casual observers into a false sense of security, causing them to completely overlook the hidden complexities and extreme condition rarities that exist within this final year of production. Place a 1958D under your light and examine the obverse. Lincoln's portrait, now a half-century old in its design, sits above the date 1958, with the bold D Mint mark of Denver situated clearly below. Because the Denver Mint was pushing its equipment to the absolute limit to meet production quotas, the quality of the strike can vary wildly from one coin to the next. Some coins were struck with fresh, deeply engraved dies, resulting in a breathtaking level of detail, where every contour of Lincoln's face and every letter of the motto Liberty is incredibly crisp. Other coins were struck with dies that had been pushed far past their intended lifespan. These late-stage dies produce coins that look soft, mushy, and visually exhausted, with the finer details blending into the fields. For an advanced collector, discovering a 1958D that was struck perfectly with fresh dies is the first step in identifying a truly premium example. Turning to the reverse for the very last time, the iconic wheat ears frame the 1-cent denomination. The composition remains the historically accurate 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, maintaining the 3.11-gram weight and 19.05 millimeter diameter. As you study the reverse, you are looking at the final moments of Victor David Brenner's complete original vision for the coin. Collectors obsess over the upper lines of the wheat stalks on the 1958D. On a poorly struck or heavily worn example, these lines disappear entirely, leaving a smooth, flat surface at the top of the ears. On an exceptional gem quality strike, those parallel lines are sharp, deeply defined, and fully separated. This level of striking detail is a primary factor when third-party grading services evaluate the coin. Because millions of 1958D pennies were hoarded by the public in original bank-wrapped rolls, there is no shortage of uncirculated examples on the market. But this creates the exact same fiercely competitive environment as we saw with the 1955S, only magnified. When the supply of uncirculated coins is high, the market becomes incredibly ruthless regarding perfection. A standard mint state 63 or 64 example with typical bag marks, the small nicks and scratches caused when the coins violently clattered against each other in the massive canvas mint bags, is easily obtainable and affordable. But a 1958D that somehow survived this industrial process without a single significant distraction is an entirely different story. The pursuit of the perfect 1958D is a high-stakes game. Collectors search endlessly for examples that grade mint state 67 red, or the nearly mythical mint state 67 plus or 68. To achieve these stratospheric grades, the coin must possess a surface that is virtually flawless under 5-power magnification. The original copper color must be a deep, vibrant, uninterrupted red, free from the slightest hint of fading, carbon spotting, or environmental damage. The luster must be blinding, rolling smoothly across the coin without breaking over any hidden abrasions. The strike must be absolute perfection, capturing every microscopic nuance intended by the mint. When a coin matching this impossible criteria is finally authenticated, certified, and sealed in a tamper-evident holder by a respected professional grading service, it transforms from a common 1-cent piece into a highly prized numismatic trophy. Bidders in major auction houses will aggressively fight for the opportunity to own the finest known example of the final wheat penny ever struck in Denver, driving the value into the thousands of dollars. Furthermore, the incredible speed of production in 1958 led to numerous minor yet fascinating mint errors. Specialists spend countless hours peering through loops, searching for die cracks that spider web across Lincoln's coat, small dia chips that fill in the letters of the date, and repunched mint marks where the D was struck into the die multiple times. While these minor anomalies do not typically command the astronomical prices of condition rarities, they are a testament to the chaotic, high-pressure environment of the Denver Mint during the twilight of the wheat penny era. They add a layer of deep historical intrigue that rewards the patient, observant collector. This brings us back to the most critical lesson of all, a rule that must be permanently etched into your mind. Whether you are holding the wartime industrial product of the 1940D, the low mintage final West Coast strike of the 1955S, or the absolute end of the line with the 1958D, you must fiercely protect the original integrity of the coin. Every time someone takes a polishing cloth to a dark, aging copper penny, they are actively erasing history. They are destroying the natural patina that took decades to form, and they are obliterating the delicate flow lines that hold the coin's true numismatic value. A worn, chocolate-brown coin tells a story of honest circulation, moving from cash register to pocket, witnessing the daily lives of Americans through the decades. A pristine, original red coin tells a story of miraculous preservation, surviving the chaos of the minting process and decades of storage without a single flaw. Both stories are completely destroyed the moment the coin is cleaned. If you suspect that you have found an extraordinary example of any of these dates, your first step is not to clean it, but to protect it. Hold the coin strictly by its outer edges to avoid transferring damaging oils and acids from your fingertips onto the sensitive copper surface. Place it securely in a specialized, inert, archival quality coin holder or a hard plastic capsule that will shield it from humidity, airborne pollutants, and accidental physical damage. Once the coin is stabilized and protected, you can begin the meticulous process of evaluating its strike, comparing its details to known varieties, and considering whether its condition warrants the investment of professional third-party authentication and grading. The beauty of the Lincoln Wheat Penny series is that it is a treasure hunt accessible to absolutely everyone. You do not need to be a millionaire to participate in this search. You only need patience, knowledge, and a willingness to look closely at the things that everyone else simply throws away. Every old jar of pennies, every forgotten piggy bank, and every handful of change passed across a counter represents a potential discovery. The coins are out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with the right information to pull them out of the darkness and recognize them for what they truly are. The next time you hold a small, dark, seemingly insignificant wheat penny in the palm of your hand, remember the incredible journey it has taken to reach you. Look closely at the date, search the space just below it for that crucial mint mark, study the sharpness of the strike, and respect the original surface. You are holding a piece of American history, and with a little bit of knowledge and a lot of careful observation, you might just uncover a story and a value that no one else ever saw coming.